Over the past 50 years, Climatech has grown and kept pace with the ever-changing HVAC industry, providing our customers with the best knowledge on the most innovative systems and services.
Serving Lorain and western Cuyahoga counties, Climatech is a full-service heating, air conditioning, and ventilation company. A third-generation, family-owned and operated company providing the most up-to-date level of service and installation with the best quality products.
Today, your comfort demands customized solutions, utilizing best industry practice combined with high-quality, reliable products that protect you and your home.
The HVAC industry will never stand still. It's a commitment to the environment that we learn, train, and produce next-level efficient products and services.
Partnering with Green Sky Financing and our dedicated customer care software allows us to give you the comfort that you need in your home.
Smart products, smart technicians, and dedication to details drive us to deliver highly effective products into your home today and into the future.
It is week 17 of the Climatech Inc. NFL Prediction Show. Cole McDaniel here with Vince McKee, hoping that everybody out there stayed warm the best they could during the freezing cold temperatures, again, in the negatives. Again, pretty icy roads out there. So again, hopefully everybody had safe travels throughout the holiday season, had a good time with their family, their friends. Holiday season's not done yet. Of course, New Year's Eve here coming up right at the end of this week, this weekend. So right here around the corner. And of course, that leads to more bowl games. It leads towards the last 2 weeks of the regular season of the NFL. So a lot still going on. Vince, great to be with you. How was your Christmas?
Hey, great to be with you as well. Merry Christmas. It was a lot of fun. I was, truth be told, I've been sick for a while. So I was starting to come out of it a little bit around Christmas Eve. Got to see my extended family for the first time in about a year. That was nice. Just as I thought, Colio, just as I thought. Went to Christmas Eve Mass, up 2 games on you, feeling like $1 million. And then by the time Mass was over and then dinner later in the evening, we were back to being tied at that spot as both the Raiders blew it. And I can't believe the Eagles even had it that close and had a chance, 2 chances at the end. So that was a bummer, but I didn't let it ruin my Christmas. And then sure enough, the next day, Denver choked. Big time. Coach long overdue is gone. So happy just to be back 3 games. But yeah, I mean, this was a lot of fun. And someday when you have kids, I mean, Christmas is just all about watching them. So it's been a lot of fun. And then covering girls basketball today. So it's been a nice week off, man. My nephew's in town. Things are good.
That's good. Can't go wrong with that. And yeah, no chance of us splitting this past week because we picked 5 games differently. So it's a matter of somebody was going to have the advantage there. Of course, you got it, and I guess you had to root against your Broncos, but in long term, that helps because Nathaniel Hackett is fired as head coach of the Broncos, so that helps you out in the long term. Thought that was going to be more of a defensive game, but, I mean, really, no, the Broncos just were terrible. They fell apart, and the Rams took care of business. So, yeah,
it's fool's gold, too. It's fool's gold with Baker Mayfield. Everybody's going to be like, oh, he lit up the best defense in football, one of the best defenses in football. You could tell Denver milled that one in. And when you have a quarterback who turns the ball over 3 times in the first and second quarter, it's just you have no chance. So
right,
it couldn't have went any worse this year for Denver. Terrible coach. The trade's been terrible. It's just been bad.
Yeah, and Baker was terrible the week before in Green Bay. So the ebbs and flows, the up and downs, those will continue. But we'll start with college football here first because we got a couple big bowl games coming up. Of course, the semifinals, and then really one of my favorite bowl games, the Traditions. I think it's just a fantastic environment and experience, and I'm going to start with that. Let's go to, well, it's actually not New Year's Day because New Year's Day falls on a Sunday this year, so not competing with the NFL. January 2nd this year is the Rose Bowl and a lot of other games. Again, really not running into that competition with the NFL. The NFL basically owns Sundays when it comes to sports and football just in general. So on Monday, January 2nd at 5 p.m., it's the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all. Number 8, Utah. The Utes going up against number 11, Penn State. Vince, that is going to be a fun game. It's always a fun experience with the Rose Bowl. How do you see this one shaking out?
Utah's been rolling, man. I'm going with the Utes because they've just looked so good at times this year. Every time they're in a really big game, they seem to win. Knocked off USC twice. Sean Clifford, goodbye. Like they can't, this game can't go quick enough. I'm sorry. I wear my heart on my sleeve probably way too often, but let the Drew Allard era begin for the love of God. So let's get one more Penn State game done. Send Clifford on his way, and let's start with the real deal.
Yeah, Clifford's not the worst quarterback ever, but it's annoying how long he's been around because he is so up and down himself. I mean, he'll have a good game, then he'll have a bad game. Then, he'll have a game where one half it's really good, one half it's really bad. I mean, he's the type of guy that has held back Penn State where they have the talent to be better than a 2-loss team or a 3-loss team each year. But I think he's oftentimes responsible for not being able to take it to the next level and not getting it done and maybe cost them even a game himself. So it's time for him to go. It's almost hard to believe that they chose Sean Clifford over Will Levis. Remember, Will Levis was actually the backup for Sean Clifford. A little stretch there in the early stages where they were both underclassmen. Now look at Will Levis. He's projected to be a top 5 quarterback in the upcoming NFL draft. He has the size, the physicality. I still think there's a lot he needs to work on. Of course, my rankings will come out here in a few months. But Will Levis is the better quarterback. He's better than Sean Clifford. It's clear. It's obvious. It's time for Clifford to finish up his career and go. He's going to get a send-off, okay? And I think the cheering and celebrating of the send-off is they're ready for him to be gone. They're ready for Drew Allard to take over. That fan base is excited for the prospects that Allard brings. So I'm excited to see what happens there. I would like to see Penn State win. But I think Utah, they're just on a run here right now where I think Penn State has a lot of young talent, specifically at running back. I just think the ability, the experience that Utah has, they were here last year in the Rose Bowl. We're up against Ohio State. Ohio State, they were able to come back and win it. I think they're not going to give up the lead this time. I think they're going to go on to win this game. Hey, they helped out Ohio State big time by knocking off USC, and I just think that they're going to continue that momentum. They're going to win the Rose Bowl, but I have it being a close game. Utah 27, Penn State 23. I think it's going to be a fun Rose Bowl matchup between the Big Ten and the Pac-12, like it oftentimes is. They're oftentimes very close games and pretty fun in general. So I am looking forward to that matchup between those two. As we turn to the semifinal matchups. So the two semifinal games coming on New Year's Eve. So it's the Fiesta Bowl, and that is between number 2 Michigan and number 3 TCU. So I'm going to start this one off, Vince, and say that Max Duggan, TCU, the Horned Frogs, they have been a team that, 1 week, like we've talked about this before. We did not too long ago. 1 week, they will put up 60 points on a team and blow them out. And then the next week, a team that they should throttle just the same. It takes a game-winning field goal, or it takes, it's like a one-possession game, and they struggle their way through it, but manage to win. Late-game heroics at times. They managed to escape really about every game that they played, aside from the conference championship game against Kansas State, where Kansas State pulled off the victory, and it was close. TCU battled back. They made it a game. It was really close, and TCU maybe should have won that one in overtime again when they said that was not a touchdown, did not cross the goal line. So aside from that, that's the only loss that TCU has this year, and they've really tested a lot of teams. Now, Michigan, they're physical. Their offensive line, they're great polling, getting out in front of the running back. They're physical. Their identity is that they like to run the ball. They like to out-physical you, be really the team that brings the physicality And then you have J.J. McCarthy, who likes to scramble, and I think he's good when he's moving. Still has a lot of work to do, a lot of progress that will need to be made in the offseason going into next year for him to become more of a pocket passer. There's certainly some athleticism, but he's got a long ways to go, I think, to continue to develop as a quarterback. With that being said, no Blake Corum, which is the downside for Michigan, out for the rest of the year, but you still have Donovan Edwards, who's a good back. You just don't have the 1-2 punch now. Michigan, with their physicality, despite the fact that I think Max Duggan and TCU, they keep it close. I think Michigan's too physical. They're too powerful. I think defensively they'll be able to slow down TCU enough. I have Michigan winning that game by 2 touchdowns, 34-20. I think it's going to be fairly close in the first half. And then by the fourth quarter, I think the front seven of TCU, they're going to be huffing and puffing and gasping for air because I just think the offensive line is going to take it to them. Michigan's going to kind of just pound the rock and run it up the middle, and I think it's going to be too much with that time of possession. So I think the Wolverines get to the championship game.
Well, much like the cough drop I popped in my mouth before we began the show, TCU's chances will evaporate. They will start off strong, but I think Michigan will pull through. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to come down probably to the very end, maybe the last 5 minutes of the game. But I think Michigan's better coached, better top to bottom, I should say that. Their kicker is incredible. So if it does come down to a kick, I think he's able to nail that. The one thing I'll say about TCU this year, though, it's been so much fun to watch them play. As I said, a few weeks ago, we were talking about it. About week 6 or 7, I started taking them a little bit more serious, started watching their games, at the very least watching their highlights when they were on, and just kind of learning them. I think Max Duggan's really good. I mean, I would have been totally cool with him winning the Heisman, but it is what it is. But I do think Michigan's going to pull this off. Now, I'll say this. While Michigan is my pick, Cole, I have read a few things lately, which I find to be very strange, but a few things lately about Jim Harbaugh going back to the pros to coach, which would be, I think, kind of a stupid move on his part. I think he has it really, really good there. Obviously the alumni and the boosters and the school stuck with him through all those losing seasons. And I say losing seasons even when they were only losing 2 or 3 games, but they were losing Michigan State, Ohio State, in their bowl game. And obviously in Ann Arbor, those are considered losing seasons. So they've stuck with Jim Harbaugh. I think he'd be kind of silly to leave. We'll see what NFL job opens up that's maybe in his eyes is a must take. But for now, back to the actual game and prediction, I do think they roll through, and I don't think it's going to be that much of a distraction. If the talk continues and we get to the national championship weekend and the talk of him leaving continues, then to me it becomes more of a bigger of a deal there. So kind of two different perspectives, to say the least.
Well, I think you're right. He's got a great gig there. I think he's set, a guy who Michigan fans wanted his head for quite a while, and then the last 2 years have gone his way. And I think he's now covered for the next 5 years, no matter what happens, I think, for the near future, just because of what they've done the last 2 years. I think if they do manage to go and win a national championship, a national title, I think that's where he'll look more towards the NFL and say, hey, I have unfinished business in the NFL. I can do it at the college level. Maybe you want to move on. I think it'd be the wrong decision for him. But I think there is a job that intrigues him in the NFL, and it's the Indianapolis Colts, of course, where he played. So Jeff Saturday is just the interim coach. I don't think he's a long-term head coaching answer. I think it was just a face that the franchise loves. And you and I have talked about it where we were like, the Colts are tanking, and we said that pretty early. And then they won the first game with Jeff Saturday, and it was like, are they actually tanking or not? And then it's pretty obvious that it seems like they're certainly tanking. They just happen to win the first one with Saturday. They really, I think they want to be in contention there for one of those top quarterbacks, and they're going to be in contention as long as they continue to lose the next 2 weeks, the Colts. So we'll see. Hey, if as funny as it is, Jim Harbaugh and C.J. Stroud right now are technically enemies, but hey, if Michigan ends up winning a national title, and the Colts job is open and CJ Stroud ends up with Indianapolis, might be enticing for Jim Harbaugh to look at that team and say, hey, I've got a really good running back in Jonathan Taylor. I have some pieces on the offensive line I can build around if we can get them healthy and then just, do a little bit more tweaking on that line. And then I've got a young quarterback that I can get settled in, focus on the run game initially, but then as a long-term quarterback. Perhaps you can see foes become friends and actually end up working together. I think that's maybe one of the only ways that he bounces from Michigan. But, they've got one step to worry about here with TCU first, and then we'll see once we get to that point. Now, as we turn to the other semifinal, and I mentioned CJ Stroud, of course, it's the Ohio State Buckeyes playing in the Peach Bowl, the semifinal that starts. It's the nightcap, and it is at Mercedes-Benz Stadium down in Atlanta. And man, do I love that stadium. I think it's a gorgeous stadium, Mercedes-Benz. It's really going to be like a home atmosphere for number 1 Georgia, but number 4 Ohio State. The Buckeyes faithful are going to travel well down there. So it's maybe not going to feel quite as much of just a home game there in general there in Georgia for the Bulldogs. So Vince, can Ohio State pull off the upset, or does Georgia march their way back to the national title and look to repeat?
Ohio State's going to win this game in an upset that not a lot of people see coming. You have to remember something. The last time the Ohio State Buckeyes played, it was like 2 days after Thanksgiving, right? It's been that long. They've had a month to rest, to pretty much assume that if they slid back into the college football playoffs, it would be playing Georgia. We're sitting there in that press box at Tom Benson talking about it. I said it that day. I'll say it again today. Ohio State has all the talent in the world. And I think I'm not going to say that maybe they're better coached, but they have a better quarterback. I think they have the better receivers. It's going to come down to physicality and keeping it close. Do I think Ohio State could come back from a 3 touchdown deficit in the second half? No. They need to keep this close. Do not get blown out like you did against Alabama a few years ago. Ironically enough, me and Cole were doing the show back then in 2020. I mean, that's how long this has been going on with Ryan Day. This is his chance. He's had over a month to stew on that Michigan loss. There's all this hubbub going on. Now is his chance. I think if Ohio State simply plays their game, doesn't rush anything, if it's close late, they're going to pull it out. They cannot fall behind by more than 2 touchdowns.
So what did I say a few weeks ago? I said the seasons that Ohio State is the most successful are the ones that they have a loss. When they're undefeated going into the playoffs, they struggle. It's like too cocky, don't have a chip on their shoulder. They think, yep, we're good. We're going to run this. And they switch off and they get beat. They get the doors blown off them. When do they have more success? It seems like the years where they slip up and they have a loss. Again, 2014, that national championship team, the first college football playoff national championship, went the way of the Buckeyes. They lost to Virginia Tech that year. Again, that was their loss. They got some help at the end. They snuck in at number 4. And this is very similar. I think that Georgia team, compared to the Alabama team of that time, and I think this is very similar. And of course, this is very similar to how the Buckeyes got in. Again, they had the 1 loss. They needed the help. They got the help. They got in with the 4 seed. They're going up against number 1. Now, where are the similarities? Georgia, their defense is still very good, but it's not as good as last year. Again, they put, 5, 6 guys from that defense last year into the NFL. There's still a lot of good pieces, but it's not quite to the same level of last year. I mean, they were stifling last year. Like, people couldn't do anything against them last year. This year, I mean, I saw Kent State, hit them, gash them on a big touchdown on the bubble screen. Yep. I saw some other teams that, wouldn't have even been able to really put up any points last year against that defense, score occasionally. So they're not as untouchable as they were last season. where are they also similar to that Alabama team? Don't necessarily come for me here, but Alabama probably had a pretty average quarterback compared to a lot of quarterbacks they've had at that time. I believe that was Sims. And again, he hasn't gone and done anything in the league or anything like that. It was just an average quarterback, almost kind of a holdover guy. Stetson Bennett is an average quarterback. He really is. What he does well is he doesn't turn the ball over very often, but he's not a big play guy. I think it's when he needs to throw it, he's fairly efficient, but he's not going to significantly beat you with his legs. He's not a big play type of guy. I think their offense is okay. Brock Bowers is the biggest threat at tight end. You need to try to find a way to take him out by putting an athletic safety on him. Maybe even the freshman Sonny Styles can spend some time on him, which would be nice. At worst, maybe you put Ronnie Hickman on him. I think you just have to take Brock Bowers out of the equation. And then the biggest thing for Ohio State is if you can put up some points on that Georgia defense, which I think is certainly a possibility this year, you're in good position. I'm saying Ohio State, they win this because it is very reminiscent of that year. And I think it's an opportunity. Ryan Day wants to, I think, come out and redeem himself. He played conservative and almost coached scared twice against Michigan the last 2 years. I think it's time for him to come out and be more aggressive and maybe unload the playbook a little bit more here on Georgia. Let loose, have at it. They're in a dome. This is where Ohio State succeeds right now with their current talent. They're based on speed. They want to air it out. You don't have to contend with weather here at all. So I think this is perfect for Stroud. It's perfect for the offense in the dome. It's perfect for Ohio State. I think it all lines up great for them. Whoever wins this game, I've said it before, wins the national championship. I'm just saying that already.
Yep. Agreed.
But I think it's Ohio State. They come away with it. Hey, and if Georgia wins it, Georgia wins the whole thing. But I just think it's set up perfectly for Ohio State. And they might be able to catch Georgia, who might be sleeping a little bit. Because, again, they walk in off of a fairly easy schedule this season. And they weren't tested too many times. And if Ohio State gives them a test and they get up, I don't think that Georgia offense is built to come from behind. They remind me a lot of the San Francisco 49ers is my best comparison.
AJ McCarron, I think, might have been the quarterback of that Alabama team. I might be wrong.
No, it
might
was
have graduated
Sims.
the year before.
He was number 6. I remember that. So, yeah, I'm trying to. I think it was Blake Sims. I think his first name was Blake.
It sounds familiar. It does. I'm trying to think about when AJ McCarron graduated from Alabama. It might have been 2013, like the year before.
Yeah.
Or after. I just remember when Hugh Jackson was the coach of the Browns, they really wanted him, tried to trade for him, and then they couldn't get the facts over. So I was just in my brain trying to what year that would have correlated. But yeah,
Yep.
I mean, we will see, but I like it. And that game, I believe, is New Year's Eve.
Yes, correct.
Cool. All right.
Yep. Yeah, that was Blake Sims, 2014.
Oh, no. I mean, it's not that I didn't believe you. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that's one of the only quarterbacks most people can't really name in the last 10 years for Alabama. So just funny enough. So as we turn to the NFL, of course, that's going to be a blast. We'll see what happens there. You know, Vince and I are both going to be rooting for Ohio State. We'll see if they can pull off that upset. As we turn to the NFL, though, we're going to start with the marquee matchup. And the best game, funny enough, comes on Monday night. So really, right towards the tail end of that Rose Bowl game that we talked about, when Penn State and Utah play, basically right after it, the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals go up against each other. I'm looking forward to that. And before I dive into this game here, Vince, again, you pulled that one game back like we talked about. You see the records up here. I'm 151-90. You're 148-93. So little by little, a little closer. But again, it's been about 3 or 4 games different for us, really for about half the season here. And we continue to wind down through the regular season. So will this game be one where we're different on? Possibly. And I'm going to start it off by saying this. Cincinnati tried to blow that game against the Patriots this past week. The Buffalo Bills tried to blow the game against the Chicago Bears this past week. Both of them had their struggles. Honestly, it was a tale of two halves in the sense that the Bengals, they came out and Joe Burrow was just lighting it up. I mean, the Patriots couldn't do anything against him in the first half. Second half, some turnovers, some mistakes. Patriots got in it. And then there were some very favorable calls going the way of the Patriots in that second half, which helped them pull their way back in it. And then the Bengals did end up getting that win at the end, that strip in the fumble recovery for the Bengals, sealing that game was huge for them. So they got the win, just hung on in that second half. The Bills, it was the first half they struggled. The Bears were up on them. Second half they came back. Josh Allen did not quite play to the same level he typically plays. So in this, two teams that are really want to get that number one seed, get the bye in the AFC. This game's in Cincinnati. Both are trying to bounce back and play a complete game. And these are two juggernauts going up against each other. And I am going to say that as much as my heart, in a sense, tells me that I just feel like the Bills are a team that I picked to win the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year. And I think they have so much talent. And I still would say that they're my favorite to win the Super Bowl. I think the Bengals are a little bit hotter right now. They're at home. And I'm going to say that the Bengals make things really interesting going into Week 18 with seeding. And they win the game 35-33. So I've got the Bengals just edging out the Bills in that game.
Yeah, I took Buffalo in this one strictly because I think they're the better team, top to bottom. They're better coached. They have a better quarterback, even if it's a razor-thin margin. But I just very much like their defense a little bit better. The run game's about dead even there. Obviously, when Mixon's healthy and Cincinnati is doing everything they need to do on that side of the ball, they're dangerous. I just feel like now is the time in this season when the best of the best step up. What's wild is, we always kind of take you behind the show at times. I think it was like past midnight the other night, and me and Cole are texting each other about who we think the best teams in the league are. And both of us agreed, that these were the top teams. Along with Kansas City, I would put them in my top three in a heartbeat. And the thing about it is this to me is a playoff-ready game for both these teams. The only thing that scares me about picking Buffalo is that they already have their division clinched. Cincinnati doesn't. So It wears me a little bit. Plus this game's on a Monday. So Lord knows what happens on Sunday that might just make this game not so meaningful for either side. If I was making this pick on Monday night, I might say Cincinnati. But here we are earlier in the week, and I'm going to take Buffalo. I want to say this as well, as I'm 40 years old, and I actually turned 41, I think like 3 weeks from today or something crazy. Monday Night Football to me was the biggest deal growing up. It was huge. Watching those two helmets collide, it was like the coolest thing. And that was the biggest game. As Cole said, it's kind of cool now that Monday Night Football this week, really only this week, that the game is going to be great. Like, how rare has it been these last few, probably decades, since Sunday Night Football has been a thing, that Monday Night Football has been the game. So very, very excited about it. I'm going to pick Buffalo. I hope they win. We will see. I love Cincinnati too. And to me, I think this is a precursor of what we're going to see in the playoffs. Two great teams, top to bottom. But yeah, I went back and forth in my head on this one quite a bit. But at the end of the day, I think Buffalo is better equipped to win on the road than Cincinnati. So that factor I removed. I went to my other factors, and here we go with Buffalo.
Yeah, and so you're riding with the Bills, and I'm going with the Bengals. And you talked about Sunday Night Football might actually play a factor into to why the Bengals might even have some more urgency and intensity because they want to win that division. Well, I'm going to just say here on Sunday Night Football, reminder that the Baltimore Ravens go up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think that's part of why I also think the Bengals win this game is the Ravens are going to beat the Steelers the night before. I have Baltimore winning that game 24-17. fairly low scoring. Baltimore starting to get the offense clicking a little bit more. J.K. Dobbins actually looking pretty good. The Steelers, I don't think they're going to be able to put up many points against a Ravens defense that looks better and better. The addition of Roquan Smith in the middle next to Patrick Queen has been huge for them. They continue to shut down the run game. I mean, they're a top 2 run defense in the league since they added Roquan Smith. Their defense is pretty scary. Their offense just has not really clicked this season. But I just think it's going to add more intensity for the Bengals the night later. That's why I was kind of going with the Bengals as well. But yeah, I think Baltimore takes care of business against Pittsburgh.
I picked Baltimore too, and this pick scares the daylights out of me, strictly because Lamar Jackson still has not confirmed that he's going to play. It's going back and forth. They're talking about contractual risks. He might not play because he doesn't want to get further hurt on that knee with the contract coming up. But come on, I think all of us realize that the Ravens are going to franchise tag him anyway, so what does it even matter this next coming season? All that aside, I just, man, I'll tell you what, like, Pittsburgh is so well coached. This is no knock on all you Cleveland Browns fans out there, which I realize is like 85% of our fan base that watches the show. But every year, y'all, you want to bash the Steelers and the Steelers are down this year and we're the Browns. Nope. Yet again, you've seen it firsthand this year that until you start winning games consistently, you will never be Pittsburgh. They could have Mason Rudolph, Mitchell Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It doesn't matter. Like, understand the Pittsburgh culture. And again, I'm picking against them this week. I'm taking Baltimore. But understand that culture, Cleveland Browns fans, and crave to be it. Don't mock it. Crave to be it, because that's what you need. They've shown you again this year with 1/3 of the talent the Browns have on the roster. And yet again, Pittsburgh's going to finish ahead of Cleveland. So I'm going to go off my soapbox because the more I talk about it, the more irritated I get. I hate saying anything nice about either one of these teams. Hate the Ravens. Hate the Steelers. I'm going to pick Baltimore, but again, if Lamar Jackson doesn't play, I don't think they have a snowball's chance. But we'll see.
Well,
they beat him once with Hundley. I don't know if they could do it twice.
Yeah, well, Mike Tomlin's a good coach. Harbaugh's a good coach. I mean, those are both guys that have been getting some heat from their fan bases, and they're both good coaches. So
that's insane. And anybody who gives Mike Tomlin any heat's a complete moron. I'm sorry. Yeah. I mean, come on. The guy's one of the best coaches in sports.
Right. So let's turn to the upset picks. What upsets we think, and by the way, let me just put it this way. I picked the Falcons over the Ravens last week, and honestly, Desmond Ridder looked very good. I've been very impressed with the way he's reading defenses at the line of scrimmage. I thought that was really impressive. I mean, he threw some strikes. That Drake London fumble's probably what turned the tide where the Ravens were able to go down the field and score. So yeah, that's one game that you got over me. So let's see if I can actually hit on my upset pick here this week. But before I go with my upset pick, Vince, what do you have on your slate?
It's one hell of an upset if it happens. I'm taking New England strictly based on the fact that I don't see Bill Belichick having a losing season. He had that one with Cam Newton, right? But since the Tom Brady-Bill Belichick connection, he's only had one losing season ever that I could recall in my brain since he got to New England. That being the case, they need to win. If they don't, there's their losing season. I think that drops them to 7-9. That's it. This is a must-win. Tua's banged up. I don't even know if he's going to play. They're talking about he's in concussion protocol. New England's defense in the second half of games, go back and look at the last 6 weeks. They've been incredible, folks. If it wasn't for that one fluke play against the Raiders, who knows where they will be at this moment. Go back and look at their second halves. Cole Salt firsthand this week watching that Bengals game. They make those adjustments in the second half. That's that defense. So if Miami comes out, gets a 2-touchdown lead, I'm not going to freak out. It's an upset pick. Anytime a road team is favored, I mean, the mismatch is clearly big. You had 3 points to it there alone. But again, going with New England, I need Bill Belichick to bail me out on this one. Only being 3 back of Cole, I had to make a smart pick. I have a couple upsets this week, but that's one of them.
Yeah, I think that one's actually going to be a close game, but I have the Dolphins just winning that. I mean, how long can they keep losing? I mean, they've been going on this stretch where they keep losing game after game right now. And I watched the Bengals and the Patriots. The Patriots terrible. Again, some fortunate calls going their way, helping them out. And they started to get some momentum. But I really don't trust anything I saw out there, so that's why I had the Dolphins winning that game. The one I have as my official upset pick, the New York Jets are favorite at the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks, they've been going on a little bit of a skid as of late, but the Jets have really been struggling here lately. So I am going with the Seattle Seahawks to win at home. I can't believe the Jets are favored in that. The wheels have been falling off for them because of their quarterback issues.
That's wild. Yeah, I'll have to take a look because I have Seattle as a 1-point favorite on my screen on Yahoo Sports. So I'll throw up ESPN. But either way, yeah, there's no. If Seattle loses that game, I'll be shocked. I think they're just more talented top to bottom on that one.
Agreed. Few others that I honestly looked at. I saw that the initial line was that the Vikings were actually the dog at the Packers. And that's one where I took the Vikings just because they managed to keep winning this season in close games and close matchups, keep escaping. So that was one that I had the upset there for that one. So just a couple games that I thought were interesting with who was actually the underdog in that game. Of course, the Browns, the underdog in their game, going up against the Washington Commanders. They ended up losing to the Saints again. Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch that, traveling.
You didn't miss anything.
But yeah, no, they were up in the first half, and second half then, threw that away. Again, issues with play calling, seeing the complaints from Browns fans. So, no, they didn't get it done, and they could have easily ran the table in their last couple weeks of the season.
And I'm taking the Browns this week, so how crazy am I? But yeah, Cole, just real quick, so we're short on time. If they would have just ran the ball down the stretch there against New Orleans, they at least would have brought that game in overtime. Some zany playing calls again. I don't know what they're doing. I understand the philosophy of a 3rd and 2 when you know you're going to go for it on 4th down. Maybe 3rd and 2, you take that shot downfield. I get it to an extent. But I'm always one of those guys, you know me. I play it safe. Like, if you could get it on 3rd down, get it on 3rd down. Like, stop messing around. It's so frustrating. That being said, I'm picking the Cleveland Browns for one reason only. They have nothing left to play for other than to prove that Deshaun Watson is the guy. This is why we paid him the money. This is why we traded away so much to get him. There's no more excuses left. You had his first game, you knew he was going to be rusty. Then you had his first road game against a really good Cincinnati team. Those were ready-made excuses. You had the Baltimore game. Again, it was freezing cold. I get that. You had this game, which was freezing cold. I get that. This game in Washington, it's a subpar team. It's a middle-of-the-road team. This is the game he has to absolutely ball out. I think he's going to do it. If not, who knows what the drama is going to be heading into Pittsburgh week. But I actually think they shock everybody. And I don't even know how much big of a shock it is. It's like a few points. But I do think they go in to beat the Commanders. So, yeah. And by the way, I agree with you. I took Seattle and Minnesota, by the way, for those 2 picks. But, yeah, Cleveland is my official pick. Very nervous about it. Dying to hear what you have to say.
Well, here's what I've seen from highlights and watching at least some clips back. The question for Deshaun Watson was, a guy who played in a dome a lot, a guy who was in a warm weather city. How would he do in cold weather? He looks good. I mean, he proved himself in cold weather. He made the plays, and they haven't even fully let him loose yet. So, no, I think that's impressive. Watson's getting it to click. I think that's excellent. The Browns, they just didn't get it done against the Saints team that they should have beat. You should have beat a dome team in cold weather like that. You didn't get it done, and that's unfortunate. But it seems like with the Browns, when they don't beat a team that they should beat, they come back the next week, they respond, they play better. That's why I have them beating Washington. I mean, you have to watch out for Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, and Terry McLaurin. Those are 3 good wide receivers. But I think you have 3 good defensive backs to match up against them in Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, and Martin Emerson. And I think that they at least slow them down enough. Washington's run game is not as strong as a lot of other teams out there in the league, so I don't think that's going to be gashing the Browns this upcoming week defensively. So I think they go out, they put together a better game. They're going to be in some better weather. I think Watson continues to look better and better, and maybe they actually get Nick Chubb on the right track here. It's been a little bit slow, tough sledding for him the last couple weeks. So we're both on the same page. I have the Cleveland Browns winning a close one here against the Commanders. So we'll see. It's going to be a fun week. Again, Vince and I are both going to be watching the Browns. We're going to be watching the Buckeyes, rooting both of those teams on. But everybody out there, we want to wish you a happy new year. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Again, thanks for supporting us in 2022. A lot more to come in 2023. So again, everybody, happy new year. Enjoy this weekend of football.
Climatech is a full-service company. We install as well as service both residential and commercial products. We service furnaces, air conditioners, heat pumps, boilers, mini split systems, tankless hot water. We've got a good group of technicians that have been developed into a company culture that delivers a good degree of confidence to the customer and gives us a good product output. They want to take care of the customer and make sure that the customer is satisfied with their service. And when you've got non-stressed employees at your home, you're going to get a greater result from that service call or from that installation. Our customer needs, comfort, and health are of utmost importance, and we strive to provide that to every customer within their budget. As we continue to grow, we remain focused on maintaining our high level of customer satisfaction. When you hire Climatech, you're hiring a whole team of experts that have been in the business well over 80 years. If you're looking for a new install, if you're looking for just maintenance on your equipment, we are the company of your choice.